Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and get started. I know some of you were in the previous meeting and some of you are joining us specifically for the Oxford meeting. Thanks everybody for coming. I'm Stacy Taboto and I work in international programs with our Oxford program and with also all of the other externally sponsored programs. So we also have with us some return students who went to Oxford last year. So I'm going to let each of you guys introduce yourselves. I can't see everyone on my screen, but I know Matt's here, Colson's here, Elsie's here. Great. Can you guys each introduce yourself and say, and Ben's here too, great, awesome. Can you guys each introduce yourself and say where you studied abroad, which Oxford option, maybe what your major is?
Sure, I was in CMRS last fall, so St. Michael's Hall, and it was a great experience.
Somebody want to go next?
Hi. So I was in LMH, Lady Margaret Hall, this past Hillary and Trinity terms. So this past spring. And right now I'm in St. Catherine's College for this current Michaelmas term.
Great. So it's unusual and a privilege that we have somebody on the panel who's actually there right now. So you'll have a unique perspective. Ben, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Ben. I'm a history major. I was at the CMRS program for last fall and Hillary, which is last winter, spring.
And Colson.
I'm Colson, and last year I was doing the Lincoln College program reading PPE, so philosophy, politics, and economics.
Great, thank you. So this is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the various Oxford options, and I know it can be a little confusing because there are a variety of ways to study at Oxford. That's why it has its very own information meeting all about Oxford. So we're going to talk a little bit about each option at Oxford, and after each one, maybe I'll have the students who did that program talk more about their experiences too. But definitely feel free to contribute as we go throughout the meeting for the return students if you have anything to add at any point. And then students who are learning about Oxford, feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat and we'll try to get to those. And we'll definitely have time at the end of the meeting too to open it up to questions too. So Oxford, the first option is the Middlebury program through CMRS. If you're wondering what CMRS stands for, it was the Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies. But the program isn't only all about medieval and Renaissance studies. That's how the program started out at that center, but now it's a very broad-based humanities program. And sometimes students even take social sciences courses. We can talk more about that. But that's what the CMRS program is it's run through Middlebury. There's also Lincoln College, which is one of the many colleges at Oxford. Lincoln is the college that we have an affiliation with, so that we send them usually a few students each year. There's also the possibility to directly enroll in an Oxford college, like what Elsie is doing right now. And then you can also go through a program provider to go through an Oxford college. And I'm going to go through each one of these and talk about them each and how they differ from each other. There's not one that's better than everything else. They're just different. And so different programs are right for different students. Oxford in general, a lot of people don't realize it's not one school, but rather it's made up of a lot of different colleges. And each college functions independently on its own with its own campus, but they're all part of Oxford University's system as a whole. The educational system at Oxford is different than everywhere else in the world. It's based on a tutorial system, and the students that have gone will talk a lot more about this. So you're not really necessarily taking courses in the traditional sense that you're used to at Middlebury, but you're doing tutorials, which are one-on-one classes usually. Actually, Colson used this term already. This is what I was going to point out, that you say reading a subject. Like you would often say, what subject are you reading? You wouldn't say, what is your major? because you are literally reading a subject for the whole time that you're there if you're going to an Oxford college. Middlebury's program at CMRS, you can do one semester, and then there's a few other semester options, but for a lot of the Oxford options outside of the Middlebury program, they do tend to be full year programs. Like Lincoln, for example, is only a full year program, and some of the Oxford colleges only take students for the whole year as well. Oxford in general, for any of these options, it's Oxford. It's going to be academically challenging. That's why people choose it. And it's really best for students who really want an academic challenge and also like to work independently a lot. Like if you really like to read and read, you'll like Oxford. It's that kind of system. So first I'm going to talk about Middlebury's program at the Oxford, the Middlebury-CMRS Oxford Humanities program. Like I said, you can go for a semester or a year. You can do fall or spring or full year. And the thing that makes our program different is it's not a direct enrollment program. You're taking classes with the program. You're not directly enrolled in Oxford University. We do, however, have an affiliation with Keble College, which is one of the many Oxford colleges. So you have access to things at Keble, such as the dining hall, the library, other facilities, and you can join Keble clubs and sports teams and things like that. So that's kind of your in into Oxford, although you're taking your classes with CMRS. Students take 4 courses on our program. Everybody does a research seminar, that's one of your classes. And then you also choose a seminar course based on what's offered. And the seminars are more like what you'd think of like a class at Middlebury, although probably a smaller group, so that you would have lectures and homework and papers and things like that throughout the semester. And then your other 2 courses are tutorials, and that's what I was mentioning too. The tutorial system is a one-on-one teaching with a professor, and I'll have the return students talk a lot more about that because I know it sounds like a really different system, and it is. And the seminars, there's a really wide variety of classes offered and a variety of humanities subjects. And the tutorials as well, there's really a wide variety of things offered. It can also be possible to do one of your tutorials in a subject that we don't have on our listing. Examples could be, we've had students do an economics tutorial or a psychology tutorial or something like that. That is possible to do sometimes. And we can put you in touch with the senior tutor at our program if you're interested in a really specific topic and you're not sure if you would be able to do a tutorial on it or not. The program is based at St. Michael's Hall. There's a picture of St. Michael's Hall, which is the housing facility, and that's where there are classrooms, there's a library, there's a kitchen, and that's where all the staff have their offices as well. St. Michael's Hall is in a fabulous location. It's kind of the envy of other Oxford programs because of its location right downtown. You literally walk out that door and there's everything that you could possibly want at your fingertips. This is a picture of Keble College. It's really lovely. The dining hall is really that dining hall. It looks like, I mean, all the Oxford dining halls look like they're right out of Harry Potter. Keble College is where you can get a lot of your student life experiences. You can join their clubs and activities, like I said. You can take your meals in the dining hall. You have access to the social things that they have to offer. And let's see what else. There's more information on our webpage, of course, about all of this. We're in the process of putting a course information database on the webpage so that you can actually look up the courses by subject area, by semester, things like that. So that's not on the CMRS webpage yet, but it will be soon, probably within the next week or so. Actually, I'm going to stop there and have the 2 students, Matt and Ben, that went to CMRS, if you could just talk a little bit about what you studied there, what a little bit about the tutorials, because I know that's a really different experience for a lot of people and they don't really understand what that is. So if you could talk a little bit about that and just about the program in general. Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, so I took 2 courses in French history, and then a course in Spanish, early modern Spanish literature. and I'm trying to think of my last one, and then a British history course. And these were courses that normally I wouldn't be able to take at Middlebury. They were very specific. You really got into the nitty gritty of the history, or in the Spanish class's case, into early modern Spanish literature. So you have to be very detail oriented, but it was so well worth it. And these were courses that I still today like think back and think fondly of in my relationships with either my peer student in the tutorial or the tutor themselves. They were fantastic, and I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. And it is like hard work, and you're going to be reading and writing every day. But I think through that process, you learn a lot about yourself as like a student, and you come out of it feeling really, really accomplished. And as long as you chip away at things every day, like it's so rewarding and so much fun. Like presumably all these classes that you take, these tutorials that you're taking, you're going to really like the subject. So I think whatever you decide, as long as it's something that is of interest, I think it's going to be really, really productive.
Great, thanks. Ben?
Yeah. No, all of what Matt said, I think covered a lot of really good points. I wanted to build off of one of the things Stacy mentioned, which is the ability to, the flexibility you have to like personalize your classes or sometimes take classes that aren't even offered. I put in the chat, I did that. I wanted to take a philosophy of history class, and they found a grad student who did some of the tutorials who taught me, and we're still in touch, and she's invited me to a lecture series over Zoom this semester, and it's been great. But even if you don't do that within any of your tutorials, there's a great deal of flexibility generally, because they'll often, your tutor will give you, sometimes it's 2 or 3 pages of just a bibliography, and they say, read some of these, and you get to pick out what sounds interesting. And there's, again, depends on the tutor or the tutorial, there's some direction, but it's a lot less of you have to read everything I give you, and much more of here are good things that would be helpful for your paper or our discussion. Pick what interests you, and then you can focus on what speaks to you on a subject, and completely or largely ignore things that you're not as interested in, which makes it like a whole different level of intellectual engagement, and it's so much fun.
Great. Do you guys want to say anything about did you do anything with Keble College or other Oxford activities or sports teams or anything that you participated in? Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I did. I focused my time on 2 main things. One of which was the French Society, which was a really fun way to get to meet international students learning French, and also the Francophone community in Oxford. And then secondly, probably the thing that took up most of my weekends was doing the cross-country club. I did the university-wide team, and it's kind of as competitive as you want it to be. And I wanted it to be competitive. So I went to all the practices and traveled with the team across the UK. And it was really rewarding. And you can definitely do that in other sports. I'm sure Colson can talk about crew. And it is like a varsity sport, even though it's called a club, but it's also very inclusive at the same time. So I think if that's what you're interested in and you want to commit to it, I think that is a great way to make current matriculated Oxford student friends, like British friends and friends who are full-time students at the university. I think it's a really great way to integrate yourself into the school.
Great, thanks. Ben, do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, I was an editor for one of the papers. They had 2, and then last year someone got upset and created a 3rd student newspaper, and then there's several like student journals and whatnot. I mean, it's a big university, and I had a blast because I got to know people on the editorial board. I mean, like most of my Twitter feed is like British student journalists now because of people I met or people, friends of friends. Had some parties. They do, what's it called? Oh, I blanked on the name, but they have a very particular sort of party they like to do in Oxford, which is a lot of fun. And it's far too easy in the CMRS program not to engage. It's not too difficult to engage, but you have to do it intentionally. And once you do, you get like a whole another element of your experience, and like get to interact a lot more with British people and with Oxford culture, which is very unique, and it's just well worth your time. You know, it was a highlight of my time for sure.
Great, thank you. And one of the reasons I wanted you guys to talk about that is exactly what you just said, is that you really can stay in the bubble of the program if you choose to do that. We hope that you're not going to do that because, you know, there's so much to study abroad that's outside of academics, but it really does help you integrate into the local culture and the university and things like that. But you do have to be intentional about it, as was mentioned. But I also bring it up too, so that you know that, like, yes, going to Oxford is academically very challenging, and but it's also, there's also a lot beyond that outside of the classroom, and there's a lot you can get involved in, and it can be a really great experience too, culturally and you know, personally and things like that. So I wanted to bring that up for that reason too. But there'll be more about that. But oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just kind of say one other thing. I also spent a lot of time at one of the church I found, and one of the things I found through that is, unlike Middlebury, Oxford also obviously it has grad school as well. And I made a lot of friends with PhD and master's students, and that made a big difference too. If you can get into some of the seminars or whatever you're interested in, you know, it's a wider range of sorts of academics that you can get in touch with and sorts of people you can meet as well.
Great, thank you. So moving on to the next option, Lincoln College. Lincoln is one of the many Oxford colleges. This is a picture of it that doesn't nearly do it justice because it's a really beautiful place. But Lincoln is one of the colleges that we have an arrangement with so that we can send them a few students each year. Not every subject is available at at Lincoln. You do have to go for the whole year, and these are the subjects that they do offer for visiting students. So they don't have just any subject. Actually, Colson mentioned PPE, that's philosophy, politics, and economics. That's really the only kind of multidisciplinary thing. Otherwise, if you go to an Oxford college like Lincoln to study, say, English, all you're going to do is study English, hence the reading a subject. But you are going to concentrate really on one subject area. And let's see what else. So Lincoln is different from the CMRS program in that at Lincoln, you are really fully integrated into the college, and you're treated really just like any other Lincoln student. You live what they call in college, which means you live on the campus in college housing. And one thing to really know about this that I want you to take away from this meeting is that this is the earliest deadline that we have for any study abroad option. The deadline to apply to Lincoln is December 1st, and they don't take late applications ever. So I wanted to be sure to mention that. I don't have the visiting student booklet or the application yet for next year, but I will soon. So I have the list of everybody who registered for this session. So when I get that information, I can get that out to you if you're interested in applying to Lincoln. But Colson, can you tell us more about your experience, what you studied there, kind of how it was set up, what you liked, any highlights? I know that's hard to
yeah, well,
sentences, but
hopefully we'll get some targeted questions too. Yeah, so basically the big advantage, right, is they basically throw you in and say, okay, you're just like all the other first years, all the other freshmen, now go. And that's more or less the end of your special treatment as a study abroad student, other than getting to pick more freely than the sort of the matriculated Lincoln students can. The in-college housing is also very, very nice, like ridiculously nice. Think twice as big as your room at Middlebury with an ensuite bathroom that's your own bathroom overlooking a quad from the 1400s. Lincoln also has the advantage it's very centrally located, unlike some of the other colleges. So it's one of the older grouping. So it's on the street with two others and abuts the high street. So you can go there. The library is also absolutely incredible. It's a converted 1500s church that they 40 or 50 years ago decided to make into a library. I think academically, one of the things to note that I don't think was covered before is the distinction over there between lectures and tutorials. So for some, not all of the courses, and again, you're a little bit in a worse circumstance being a study abroad student as opposed to someone who's taking exams in 2 years, there'll be a set of lectures on the topic you're covering, which is separate from the tutorials. It may even be asynchronous. So I took a British politics course, and there were 16 lectures for that once a week over Michaelmas and Hillary terms. But then I only had 8 tutorials in Hillary. So the idea of the lectures is here's a general overview of all of the topics, and then you'll pick some more that you want to go into depth with. But sometimes you won't actually get the lectures or need the lectures, except for economics. They're a lot more important for economics, and they make you take the lectures at the same time that you take the tutorials. But I had another course, a political theory course, where the lectures ended up being the term after I took the course. So I just didn't go to the lectures because I was done with it then. And I'm like sort of a matriculated Oxford student. I'm not taking an exam that counts for everything there. But yeah, I'd reiterate the sort of independent work thing. It's very important, especially with the Lincoln program. You kind of end up a little bit off of all the groups academically. So like Michaelmas, I was taking a first year and a third year course, and the third year course was outside the college. It was with a tutor at Worcester. So you need to kind of have your stuff together so that you know what you're doing on your own, because it's fully possible that you won't know anyone in college who's taking what you're taking, depending on when you're taking it and how specific the subject is. And then the only other thing I'd caution is the people there are great. Everyone who works at the college is fantastic, but don't expect them to be crazy on top of stuff. If you're the type of person who gets stressed out by administration doing things last minute, you might have some trouble. I didn't actually get my housing assigned until I was on the plane to the UK. I'm still working to get my transcript submitted, that sort of a thing. But they'll get it done, and they're very nice about it. It just takes a little while.
Good. Do you want to say anything more about extracurricular stuff?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. It's a little bit easier to jump into the stuff like they were talking about with Keeble, right? Lincoln has all the same sort of stuff. And you're a little bit more integrated into it too. They put on, drama productions, there's club sports teams, all that sort of stuff. So my big sort of time sink was like Matt doing a university wide sport. I don't know if anyone's interested in rowing. I could talk more about the rowing system over there, which is as complicated as the college divisions. But that was sort of my big one, a little bit more university wide than college wide, but they have a shockingly wide gamut of things for however big it is, 300-400 undergrads.
Yeah, one time I started how many clubs and societies there were, and I stopped when I got in the hundreds. There are literally clubs and societies you can join for just about any interest you could dream up. So great, thank you. So moving right along, another option is to directly enroll in one of the other Oxford colleges, like Elsie has done 2 of them now. And some Oxford colleges take visiting students and some don't. And some colleges take visiting students for some departments and not others. And some colleges take students for the whole year, and some do allow you to do a spring semester. Or Middlebury actually in most cases doesn't allow you to do just fall because it's too short. But yeah, so basically, long story short, every college is different in terms of what they offer for visiting students. A lot of them are full year only. And direct enrollment, like I said, varies by college. Many of the deadlines tend to be around early to mid-January to apply. So they're not quite as early as Lincoln, but they are considerably earlier than the other UK schools. This website, which I'll make this PowerPoint available to anybody who wants it, so don't feel like you have to write down URLs. But this website has a big chart that sort of tells you which colleges take visiting students and for which subjects and for which timeframes, and it gives you the website to look at for that specific college, because they do, like I say, they do all tend to operate independently of each other, so they all have different requirements and conditions and things like that. And at some Oxford colleges, you're more integrated than other Oxford colleges. Like some of the colleges do sort of treat the visiting students just like Colson described at Lincoln, where you're just thrown in with everybody else. And some of them do kind of put the visiting students a little bit separately. To be honest, it's hard to navigate that as you're applying, and it's really hard to tell what that is. So, I mean, it's really good if you can talk to students who have either been to a particular Oxford college or know somebody who went there that can tell you more, because that is a little bit hard to navigate. Also, just to, so you know this is an option, there are what we call program providers that can also enroll you in these particular Oxford colleges. So the program providers that we have the most experience with are the Institute for Study Abroad, IFSA Butler, and Arcadia University, and they work with these particular Oxford colleges. What the providers do, they're basically like intermediaries. So they provide an additional support structure for you. So they'll sort of place you at the school and give you guidance through the process. So they'll guide you through getting your tutorials, getting your housing. They have staff in country that you can consult if you have questions or need advising. You pay more for these programs because you're getting all these additional services. And what some people do like or don't like about these programs is that then you're more or less part of the study abroad group in addition to being a regular student at Oxford. So again, pros and cons to all of these different options. But just so you know that these are all out here. These are the websites to look at for these particular options. But at this point, Elsie, what can you tell us about the Oxford colleges that you've had experience with?
Yeah, so I think for the academics, like I think like the previous panelists have shared quite a lot, but I think I just share a bit like some special points about like some characteristics about direct enrollment. So it's compatible with if you want to study abroad elsewhere, or if you want to like start your summer internship early, like in like by the end of May or in like early June. Because I also, so first I also studied abroad in Japan. I did my fall semester there, and for spring I went to LMH. So if you're looking, if you wanna like study abroad in multiple places, some direct enrollment program, you can only go there for the spring semester, and LMH actually offer extended Michaelman semester so that's like a longer Michaelman semester. They start, I think, a month earlier than Euro, so that's also something to consider. And Trinity term typically ends mid-June. So, but like by that time, like internship has already started. Like I think for most people, but this year I do know, like this is like negotiable, at least for LMH, and actually some other colleges this is like still negotiable. So you don't have to like do the full of Trinity term. So you can like both study abroad and like start your internship on time, because this is something I was worrying about when I was applying, like because the timing, like the British academic calendar just doesn't match very well with like the American like internship, like summer recruiting system. So this is, yeah, something to consider. And for courses, one thing special about direct enrollment, like at both LMH and SimCADs, I were able to take classes outside my major. So I applied as a student in politics. I mainly study political theory, but this semester I'm also taking a tutorial in practical ethics. And at LMH last term, I have friends who enrolled as students in business and computer science, and ended up also taking classes in politics and literature. So yeah, I think it's really flexible. And in terms of, and also for tutorial, there's also quite a lot of flexibility. So normally, you get a primary, which is 8 tutorials, and a minor, which are 4 tutorials. But if you want to kind of overload, like take 2 primaries, it's possible. Or if you want to take 3 minors, or 1 primary and 2 minors, those are all, like in both LMH and SimCATs, those are all negotiable with the director of visiting student. So yeah, I think there's a lot of flexibility in, at least in both programs I've been. And I think the best way to like understand the specific of each program is probably to reach out to students who've been in that program. And
Great.
yeah, that's pretty much about direct enrollment.
Great, awesome, thank you. Just a few things to follow up. I think probably St. Cat's is the most flexible place because they also are one of the colleges that take the most visiting students. So they have a lot of experience with study abroad. Because in my experience at most of the colleges, you really are kind of confined to one subject area. So I think that is pretty unique to St. Cat's. Also, like, I think it's pretty unique that they sort of gave you flexibility with the time with Trinity term 2, because I've never heard that before ever. So I wouldn't like count on that for anybody who's thinking of going. So that's really interesting. But one thing too that, I mean, you guys, again, it's another argument for talking with students who've gone, and maybe you guys can say more about this, but people say all the time that all of the different colleges have different feels to them, but then it's really, really hard to describe that to somebody. It's like when you're thinking about all the private liberal arts colleges in New England, like, yes, they all have different feels to them, but it would be really hard to describe that to somebody. So it's, again, it's, you know, another argument for talking with students who've been. And lots of students, I don't know if you guys did this who have gone, lots of students visit other colleges and get to know students from other colleges. So you get to experience them a little bit. I had
You should go around and do the formal dinners in all the halls. See how many you can get.
Yeah. I
And
was just gonna
most
say,
of the Brits will happily and very cynically describe the feels of different colleges. Like you can definitely
you
sum
probably
it
will
up
get a
pretty
lot
quickly.
of different opinions on that. Yeah.
Also,
Thank you.
sometimes
Yeah,
your tutors will break out opinions about different colleges.
Yeah, that's funny. I was going to mention a few years ago, I had some students who made it one of their goals to be invited to every dining hall. And I don't think they quite made it, but they went to lots of different dining halls at the different colleges. So everybody has their different goals, I guess. But those are the options. And just to talk a little bit about admissions overall and how they differ from these options, and then a little bit about the financial stuff and how that differs as well. Oxford, as we have already said many times, is very competitive. So the GPA requirements are much higher than anywhere else you can apply. If you want to apply to any of the Oxford colleges, Lincoln included, you have to have at least a 3.7 GPA. They won't even look at anything lower. The Middlebury program is a 3.5 GPA and above. On occasion, students with a little bit lower than that do get accepted if you have really strong recommendations. So, you know, if you're really, really interested and you have a 3.4 and not a 3.5, you can still apply. But definitely the Oxford colleges are really set at 3.7 and above. Recommendations are really, really important for all of these options. If you're applying to one of the colleges, it's really good if your recommenders can talk about your suitability for the tutorial system. So, you know, if you work well independently, you really like to read and write, if you've done any kind of independent project with any professors and you've done really well, that might be a good person to write a recommendation. It's a good idea for the Oxford colleges to have at least one of your recommendations from the subject that you want to study there. They don't both necessarily have to be, but at least one should be. All of these have essays and writing samples included in the Middlebury program. So it really is important to put some time into those. And with the essays, I think they leave them very wide open on purpose. A lot of people don't really realize or don't really have any idea what they're supposed to write. And it's not necessarily like a college essay in that you have to come up with something super creative and sell yourself and sound different than every other person. It's not as much like that as really, it really should be much more academically focused for the essay for this. But like I said, I think they leave the essays really wide open on purpose to see what you write. So there really isn't a lot of guidance, but they are really important as a part of your application. Whoops, going the wrong way. So with Oxford in general, you should have more than one option because they are competitive to get into, like I said. Very few students are really admitted to the Oxford colleges. So you definitely should have some backup plans. And it's fine to apply to multiple universities anyway, even if you're looking at, say, a lot of different universities in England or the UK in general. It's fine to apply to multiple schools anyway. And regardless of what you decide and when you decide to go, you still need to apply to Middlebury by February 1st. And then for the Middlebury program, your application to Middlebury, the February 1st application, that is your application to the program since it's Middlebury's program. But for all of the other options, you're applying to Middlebury for approval, but then you also have to apply to the schools or to the programs themselves. And like I said, those deadlines vary, but the Lincoln one is December 1st and the others tend to be around mid-January, early to mid-January. So just, yeah, see the web pages for more details on each specific information or each specific application process. I'm not going to go over all of this because you can easily find it on the web page, but those are the expenses for the Middlebury program. And I bring it up too because it works a little differently from a lot of the other options, because with the Middlebury program, what you pay Middlebury is for tuition and housing because you have a room in St. Michael's Hall. And then your food costs, there's not a meal plan. It's your food costs are out of pocket. So you're either eating at the dining hall, cooking for yourself, probably some combination of the two. But if you're a student on financial aid, the financial aid office is going to take the whole cost of attendance into account. So that they'll look at all of this, tuition, room, board, books, everything. Even though your food is being paid out of pocket, if you're on financial aid, they'll still consider that as part of your financial aid package, if that makes sense. So all of this is on the web. All of these details about financial stuff is on the web. If you're on federal financial aid, that can go to any of these programs as long as you're approved to go. But unfortunately, Middlebury grant aid is a lot more limited. Middlebury grant financial aid only goes to the Middlebury-CMRS program. Unfortunately, you can't take Middlebury grant aid to any of the other options. And also, unfortunately, Oxford is one of the most expensive places in the world, as you probably can guess, because of its exclusivity and everything. So we've also already talked about a lot of this, but I did just want to sort of give you the next steps. I would really encourage you to talk with return students. I can certainly give you a list of all the students who've been abroad. You can just email me for that. You can read past students' evaluations on abroad101.com. And that's a huge website. It's not just Middlebury students' evaluations. It's evaluations that students from all different schools have written about all different study abroad programs. Definitely talk with your academic advisors. Do that on the early side this semester if possible. You do need to declare your major by February 1st as well. I am more than happy to meet with you to talk about your own interests and programs that might be a good fit for you, the application, whatever questions you might have. You can make an appointment to see me right through our webpage. So I'm totally happy to do that with any of you. And then of course, you want to be ready to apply in the next few months. And then we sort of walk you through each of these steps so that once you do know where you're going abroad, we have pre-departure meetings. We sort of walk you through the rest of the pre-departure preparation that comes later. But now for this semester, what you want to concentrate on is doing your research into the different programs and talk to past students, talk to your advisor, and really, do your homework so that you're ready to apply really soon. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over again to the return students to talk about anything else that hasn't come up that you want to talk about your experiences at Oxford, or any advice you have for students who are in the shoes of these sophomores who are probably just getting started on this process, and any advice, things you wish you had known as you were choosing a program, or anything else you want to add.
So for the direct enrollment programs, I know there is like maybe mixed opinions about applying to different Oxford colleges at the same time. So basically applying to different like direct enrollment programs at the same times. And I've like met some students who've done that. And I also know one student who got into a college and got rejected by the other one. So it was lucky for him like to apply to like different programs. So he at the same time. So, but I wonder what's your opinion on like applying to different colleges? Because that's something I sort of like debated about, and I ended up only applying to one college, but yeah, there is definitely pros and cons.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's lots of opinions on that, and it's even changed from year to year. I mean, there have been years when my colleagues at Oxford have said, it's really a good idea to apply to multiple places. You really shouldn't concentrate on one. And I've had other years and other colleagues say, oh, it's fine to apply to more than one. So I don't think there's an answer to that, unfortunately, because, yeah. So, but you can apply, if you want to apply to the Middlebury program and the Lincoln program and another thing, you can do that if you want to do that. So I don't know. I realize that doesn't answer your question because I don't think there really is a very clear answer to that. And there's a lot of different opinions. What else? Anything else anyone else wants to add? Or anybody that has questions for either me or for the return students? I'm just going to look in the chat box. Okay. Any other questions?
I just want to double check. So other than St. Cat's, the other colleges usually only take classes within one subject, and like, is there any exceptions to that, or? Okay,
so at LMH, as I mentioned, I know students who applied for like business and computer science and ended up taking like political theory classes with me, as well as like literature classes. But like the programs I've been on, both LMH and SynCAS, they were quite flexible, but of course I think this like varies a lot from college to college. So I think the best, like maybe what you can do is to reach out to the visiting student coordinator or the director of their program, and all their contact information are in the link Stacy put on the site before. And also for if you're considering like internship. So these are maybe something you wanna ask them first, like before applying, or if you ended up receiving multiple offers, these can help you to decide if the program is really for you.
Yeah, I would say for, in all my years of experience sending students to Oxford, the vast majority of them are only studying one subject, except PPE, which is a combination of subjects.
I think you had HISPOL up there, history and politics, as one of the other
yeah,
options,
history and politics
which,
too. We haven't had anybody do that combo for a few years, but yeah, you're absolutely right. But for most other subjects like English, for example, you're only going to take English. So, but I don't know. I mean, maybe what Elsie's saying, maybe the colleges are getting more flexible. I mean, that could be the case too. But I definitely count on that.
Or it might be possible to apply to study 2 subjects. So if you want to do like philosophy and psychology at the same time, I know like quite a number of students who apply to study 2 subjects, but it's also possible to like apply to study for a course but ended up taking courses in other subjects. Like in my experience, but like the program I've been on are quite flexible, and maybe other colleges do not really share this flexibility.
Yeah.
So it's like good to check with the program.
Are those study abroad students that you're referring to, or degree students?
Oh, they're all study abroad students, visiting students.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's good to know about LMH too, because the other Oxford colleges, in my experience, aren't really flexible with that. So it's good to know that maybe they're getting more flexible. Who knows? Anything else anybody wants to add or questions?
If nobody else, I have like another question about the IFSA and Arcadia stuff. So originally I thought they're just sort of like an application portal for some of the colleges, but is it like do they have other like does the organization do other stuff on top of that?
Yeah, it's way beyond that. It's really a support structure is what it is. So like those Butler and Arcadia are in the US, so they're actually universities in the United States. So they have a staff that will sort of advise you and guide you through the whole process. So like you can call them all through the application process. You can talk about your academic interests and goals. They can guide you through that. They can help you basically get set up. They have staff in country that conducts an orientation when you get there that's specific to that group of students. And then you have that group of students. They might not all be at the same Oxford college as you, but there might be like Arcadia students, for example, at a number of different Oxford colleges. And so you would meet when you got there and be part of the same group. So it is more than an application portal. And that's why they cost more, because you're getting all of those extra services and extra things built in. And like I said, I don't think one is better than the other. I think it really depends on your personal preference and how much support structure and you want, and how much you want to be part of a study abroad group or not. And the Oxford or Arcadia and IFSA also don't work with every single Oxford college. So, it might depend on the college that you're interested in too, if it even makes sense to go through a provider. And you can also call Arcadia, for example, and just say, hey, this is what I'm interested in. Is there a particular Oxford college you'd recommend? So they're a really good resource. Does that explain better? Okay, great. Those of you who went to Oxford last year, any parting advice or anything that you want to say to the students that are thinking about going?
If you're doing the Lincoln program, start the essay early. It takes several attempts to actually, put in whatever 2 or 3 pages, your entire sort of academic track record of why it makes sense for you to do it at Oxford. It takes a lot more time than you might expect. Great. Good. And you want to encourage them all to go, right? Because it's such a great experience, right? Yeah. Seeing head nods. Yes, good.
It's awesome. It really is. Wherever you decide to go, it's going to be awesome. You're going to make incredible connections and take courses with incredible professors. So definitely get excited about it.
Good. Well, I'm certainly available for appointments if anyone has other questions. And I'd be happy to meet with you, or you can always email me too. There's lots of other information meetings coming up too through our office. So check out our webpage. And you can listen to any of the other information sessions that have already happened. They're all recorded. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you have questions. And thank you everybody for coming. Thank you especially to the return students for taking time out of your busy schedules to share your experiences. I hope that was fun for you. So thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.